The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's number one three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's number one choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.
From a design standpoint, again, we've got two areas where we put pre-assembled products in place. Probably the most significant one is our bearing assembly that we have our own patented design on. And it's got the ability, it's a pre-assembled piece that just connects on four bolt points to the pile. And so you don't have to do any additional assembly. You can drop the torque tube right on top of the bearing. And then you have some adjustability, up to 6 levels of adjustability for misaligned piles.
Are you speeding the energy transition? Here at the Clean Power Hour, our host Tim Montague bring you the best in solar, batteries, and clean technologies every week. Want to go deeper into decarbonization? We do too. We're here to help you understand and command the commercial, residential, and utility solar, wind, and storage industries. So let's get to it. Together, we can speed the energy transition.
Today on the Clean Power Hour, scaling manufacturing in the solar industry. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Welcome to the Clean Power Hour. My guest today is Eric Goodwin. He is the Vice President of Business Development for a very large manufacturer called OMCO Solar. You may have heard of them. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity. It's good to talk to you.
This has been a long time in the coming. I'm excited to bring you onto the show. As my listeners know, I am officially a geek for solar racking, and that is the majority of your manufacturing, but not all of it, as we're going to talk about your partnership with First Solar and making their back rail. But Eric, before we go into the OMCO legacy in the solar industry, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into clean energy?
Absolutely, Tim. I got into solar in 2009 after spending about almost 20 years in automotive and aerospace, working in both manufacturing and supply chain. Kind of by a whim, I went to a solar conference in LA, California, met a gentleman named Mark Henderson, who's the CEO of a startup solar company called Ray Tracker in Pasadena, California. And I really was looking at the growth of solar. I was always very interested in renewables, and I had the opportunity to take a big career change and join a startup company, a startup solar tracker company in Ray Tracker. And roughly within a year, Ray Tracker was acquired by First Solar. Joining First Solar in January 2011, and we had the opportunity in my 5 years at First Solar to scale the First Solar design version of that tracker product. And that actually linked me to OMCO, because at that time, OMCO was a contract manufacturer for that product and provided the module mount for that tracker. So got in from a startup to be able to be part of First Solar. And then in 2017, I came to OMCO right at the time where we transitioned from a contract manufacturer, making everybody else's foundations, fixed tilt racking, tracker components, to starting to bring our own products to market over the last 7 years, which we now have done. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a great journey so far. It seems like it's went by really fast.
Right.
And I know there's still a lot of fun ahead of us.
So Ray Tracker was acquired by First Solar, the thin film solar panel maker, also based in Ohio. And whatever happened to that product, does it still exist in some form?
It does not. As Ray Tracker, when First Solar made the acquisition, they basically, we closed the Ray Tracker business and continued to support it from a warranty standpoint. But the acquisition was really focused on the Series 4 module at the time. and First Solar's own projects. And so, at that time, the Ray Tracker product became the First Solar tracker.
Got it. Cool. So fast forward, you joined the OMCO team, and OMCO, as I understand it, got into racking in around 2007. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct, Tim. So OMCO as a company has been around since 1955. We actually have a birthday coming up next year. We'll be 70 years old.
Wow.
It's been great. We've always had a mix of different businesses as a roll former of steel, but we were known before we got into solar, and still are, primarily as a truck and trailer bumper, a lot of transportation components that are roll formed. We also manufacture a lot of material handling products, many different roll form shapes in various industries as a contract manufacturer. But in 2007, we started in solar as a contract manufacturer. Gary Schuster, our CEO, joined the company in 2006, who's still our CEO to this day. And he had a vision to get us into the solar side, being able to look at the growth. And I think he was ahead of his time a little bit, and looking at where our next growth was going to be. And about a year into that process is where we really started to talk with First Solar they were a kind of an initial adopter or customer at that time. And that was the same time where First Solar started to vertically integrate and brought their own EPC, started to bring their own designs. And we started with a 9 megawatt project in Boulder City, Nevada, in the 2008 timeframe, and we thought that was the biggest project in the world. And at that time, it really meant a lot. And we had an opportunity to continue to grow over about 9 years as First Solar scaled their EPC business.
Well, it's kind of appropriate. Back in the day, 9 megawatts was a big project, right? And now fast forward to 2024, a big project would be 100 megawatts. And I think in the pre-show, you were telling me that you're now closing 100 megawatt plus projects, right?
Yes, Tim. I mean, we have, obviously the timeline of a lot of these tracker projects are, they're very fluid, and sometimes they push a little bit. But we have some partners that we're working very close with that we're looking at. We've done projects within the 30 to 40 megawatt range over this past year, and we're in the process of finishing. We're on the second project of a total 80 megawatt portfolio in New York. But we've got 2 or 3 announcements that we're expecting to make in early 2025. And then in parallel, we're continuing to work with our partners at Create Energy as they begin module production in the U.S. in Portland, Tennessee, in probably, I think it's supposed to be end of first or early second quarter next year. So eventually, we're looking forward to hopefully by mid next year some additional announcements. We've always taken the position when we get into new markets and scale that we want to walk before we run. That was always when we launched our tracker in 2019. I think that's paid off for us. And so we're really targeting some key partners on these initial larger projects, and we're excited about that.
I want to talk about the partnership with Create, but before we do that, I think we should set the table a little more. I mean, OMCO is the largest custom roll former in the United States. So it's a very big steel manufacturer, steel products manufacturer. Got into solar in 2007. Supporting other racking companies. And then you've slowly but surely rolled out the OMCO brand and now have gone to market, 5 years ago with the tracker?
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about the solar racking business for OMCO. What's the scale of that? And how does it break down fixed versus tracker?
Yeah, Tim. So over the last 2 years, I would say, we launched our fixed tilt product, our choice rack, initially our field fast product, and it morphed into our direct bolt option in 2017. And we had the opportunity by 2019 to start doing some very large utility scale projects on the fixed tilt side. And so this year we'll end up around 1.2 gigawatts of fixed tilt. Wood Mackenzie's starting to track that data on the fixed tilt side. It's still very kind of informal. I think next year they'll probably have more formal numbers, but we've been told by Wood Mackenzie that we're either the market leader or one of the market leaders in fixed tilt, and so we're still seeing a healthy amount of fixed tilt projects we're doing a 350 megawatt, for instance, in Kentucky right now. A lot of reasons driving that, everything from terrain to O&M to IRA prevailing wage in some cases. But I also think it's a function of the market getting bigger and solar growing that you're seeing more of those projects. And so our goal on the fixed tilt side is to be the market leader. We believe we have a platform to grow on and a product that's performed very well. On the tracker side, just kind of looking at OMCO as a whole, we are very active in the DG market, 10 megawatt and under. We'll always play in those markets because they're growing and because we have a factory direct model that allows us to be competitive. We have very quick lead times. We're making everything in-house. There's some advantages there. And so for us, last year was about also transitioning into the utility scale. So we're hopeful to be able to do 200 to 300 megawatts next year, or at least be at some point of completing. Over the last 5 years, we've done about just under 400 megawatts of projects, which total 150 projects, most of them 10 megawatts and under, because the goal again was to walk before we run, make sure we have a product that's reliable. We have some customers that we're on project number 30 on, which we're really pleased about as far as being able to maintain customers and being able to establish repeat customers. But back to OMCO manufacturing as a whole, we have 6 manufacturing facilities throughout the U.S. Our most recent one was opened up in Huntsville last year, Huntsville, Alabama. And we have that plant. We have a secondary plant in Talladega, Alabama, which we opened in 2014. We're headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where the company was founded. We have manufacturing there. And we have 2 manufacturing plants in the Pierceton, Warsaw, Indiana area. And then our solar market was started in our Phoenix, Arizona plant, which is where I'm based. So between those 6 plants, we've got about 700,000 square foot of manufacturing space. And depending on the mix between tracker and fix, up to about 13 gigawatts of annual capacity. So we're ready to roll. And this year has been a nice growth year for us. It's actually been a breakout year in growth. And, we're now positioned to take that next step.
I think domestic content is a very hot topic. Of course, there's racking, modules, inverters, and they all matter in the greater scheme of things. But every developer, asset owner, and EPC is trying to get the products that they are installing to meet the domestic content requirements, which gives you a 10% adder for the ITC. The base is 30%, and then you can reach up to 60% if you can get the domestic adder, energy community, and LMI adder. So anyway, anything else you want to say about your manufacturing footprint? I love that number, 13 gigawatts. That's a big number. That would be almost a quarter of what we can install nationally now in the United States. So that's a big footprint.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we do have the ability. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. We're not close to using that capacity, obviously. But
Sure.
we do have a longer term plan to be able to increase capacity over the next 5 years if needed. But on the domestic content piece, Tim, I can kind of add a little bit, kind of how we look at it and where our position is right now. We've always had the same business model that we do with U.S. Steel, U.S. manufacturing. As a steel company that allocates steel across multiple markets, we've always had a lot of buying power, which has allowed us to be competitive. It's allowed us to deal with things like COVID or times where allocation might be an issue. It also has allowed us to flex schedules a lot because we don't always have to take material. If a customer says, "Hey, my project's moving to the right a couple months," sometimes we were able to hold steel and not really have a noticeable impact. And so I think the steel piece is a big big part for us, and also some of the partnerships we have. We have great agreements with steel providers like Nucor. When we look at some of the work we're doing with First Solar in Alabama, that's tied into Nucor. We make the back rail for the Series 7, which is a separate part under our solar umbrella versus what we do is in our core products, which is our tracker and our fixed tilt. But part of that agreement with First Solar is basically a triangle supply chain in Alabama, with Nucor Steel in Decatur, Alabama, First Solar outside of Decatur, Alabama, and then our plant in Huntsville, and they're all within 23 miles apart. And so, those are the kind of partnerships I think we're seeing a lot in the U.S. But back to the domestic content piece, we're the only tracker supplier, I believe, in the U.S. market that makes every single structural component of the tracker product, including torque tubes ourselves, in both Indiana and Phoenix ourselves. And so, in addition to the structural components and the benefit that allows to get to that extra 10%, we also can realize the full 45X tax credit, the manufacturing tax credit, both on the torque tube and then our bearing, fasteners, and rails. And so what's been good there, we're currently, our bill of material with foundations, because we make our own foundations as well, is at about 88 to 92%. Trackers looked at as a manufactured product, so they exclude the piles for the trackers. So, we still come in around 75, 78% from a cost model standpoint. But with the recent, I think it's been about 6-7 months now, the Treasury guidance to also allow our developers, our customers, to use the safe harbor template. And I won't get too much in the math because I know there's a lot of details, but the safe harbor template is very cut and dry. And you can look at what the percentage of a project is. And I think the safe harbor template is also very beneficial to U.S. module suppliers. I think it's very kind of lean towards the module components. And so right now, our tracker would accomplish 13% of a total project. And if you pair it with the First Solar module, I think Helene, we're doing a lot of DG stuff with Helene and others. You're able to have a pretty compelling value proposition to get over that 40%. And I think the last thing I'll say about that is, I think the tracker companies in the U.S. and the big players have done a great job of bringing more manufacturing to the U.S. And I think every one of us has an action plan, I think at least the major players, of getting to 100% domestic content tracker. And so, our target, and we've got a plan that's coming together, is to have that option by the end of second quarter next year. And, and they're obviously in the two areas where we lack right now are the dampers on our product and the drive motors. And so both of those suppliers are, close to being able to make product in the U.S. So from a domestic content standpoint, we've never changed anything. It's great to see how the IRA has really, lit the fire on U.S. manufacturing.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
It's very beneficial for us, obviously.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more. So when you're talking to customers, you're selling a commodity, solar racking, and I'd love for you to break down for us, though, how you differentiate OMCO from the handful of other options that an installer or developer or asset owner might have, both for the fixed and tracker market.
Yes, absolutely, Tim. On the fixed tilt side, the ability to do both is really helpful for some projects because we're seeing some hybrid projects. So we try to maximize that. Some tracker suppliers just make trackers. But on the fixed tilt side, really what we've tried to do on all of our products we did 8 gigawatts of everybody else's product as a contract manufacturer over 10 years almost. And so with that, we try to take a lot of lessons in what happens in the field. And so a constant theme in our product is trying to look at pre-assembled in the factory when we can. And so on our fixed tilt, our tilt bracket, which is kind of one of the major components that hooks to the purlin, is pre-assembled in our factory. It rolls up very nicely. It's easy to put into a truck, unload. And then the fact that we make our own driven C pile, which we have a thicker gauge version that's got 2+ gigawatts deployed that performs comparably to a W pile. We can source W piles. We know foundation is religion to our customers, and we have some customers that would rather go with a W than a C option. But that being said, we're able to use the in-house model. The fact that there's one team from the second a PO is issued to the last part is delivered to the warranty team. We don't have to source any of these products on the fixed tilt side. So it makes it very easy for the customer experience. And also our lead times are very short. For a 20 megawatt and under fixed tilt project, we can deliver normally within about 6-7 weeks after PO if needed. And that includes all of the engineering, foundation design, construction sets. So on the fixed tilt, we meet the 100% US and steel and iron requirements. It's pretty more straightforward on the IRA versus the tracker. And then when we look at our value proposition on the tracker side, we once again lean on our vertically integrated ability to have one source to talk to. Our drive motors currently come from Mexico, so do our dampers, which actually the Mexico location is literally 3 hours from our Arizona plant. So we're not relying on ports. We're not relying on epidemics or global geopolitical events. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've really been able to be very stable in what our supply chain and very, very elegant supply chain. And a lot of our customers, we've been able to help save project schedules because we can react so quick. From a design standpoint, again, we've got 2 areas where we put pre-assembled products in place. Probably the most significant one is our bearing assembly that we have our own patented design on. And it's got the ability, it's a pre-assembled piece that just connects on four bolt points to the pile. And so you don't have to do any additional assembly. You can drop the torque tube right on top of the bearing. And then you have some adjustability, up to 6 levels of adjustability for misaligned piles. And so, we know on project sites, every pile is not going to go in perfect. So, that feature is something we saw from being in the field all these years. And from a design standpoint, we also have pre-assembled module mount. And we've got a couple different module mount designs for different bifacial modules versus Series 6, Series 7 for solar. And so again, trying to look at ways to have less things to put together, less pieces of hardware. And our tracker lead times for 20 megawatts and under right now are probably closer to 9 to 10 weeks to start delivery. And so again, our lead times are very competitive. We have a lot of steel going through all of our factories, again, across multiple markets. So, it does allow us to respond pretty quickly. I think those areas, those are the things we try to bring in is what we would hope to be differentiators.
Yeah, I'm curious to learn more about this bearing system. I was on your website yesterday checking that out, and it is very unique in how flexible and adjustable it is. I mean, you're using a slew drive like many trackers, which is like a drive that comes from other industries. I'm not sure what it was invented for, but it comes, it's another commodity that is just integrated into the tracker market. But this flexibility, I guess, of the tracker, where does that come into play the most in your experience? What type of sites are you talking about?
Yeah, so with our baseline design, and I think this is something we're starting to talk a little bit more about because it's pretty important, is the ability to follow terrain. We know a lot of the sites that we are doing, especially a lot of the DG type sites, whether it's in the Northeast or other areas, are on sites that usually in the past years you'd see a lot of grading, or you just don't always have that opportunity. And so we have the ability to handle a 15% north-south slope we've got a couple ways we do that with the design. Part of the bearing and torque tube design, we make our own torque tubes, as I said earlier, and we have a little bit of flex in the torque tube that's able to kind of accommodate some terrain following. We also have a algorithm through our controls that kind of ties into the torque tube bearing interface. That's a balanced tracker that allows us to, we normally kind of go back a little bit, not even noticeable, and then move forward, and it's a little bit different. It puts a little bit less pressure on the motor. And then the other way we handle depression and slope is we use different pile reveal heights. So on some sites, we may have 2 or 3 different lengths of piles that still keep the tracker at the same base and be able to install the product to handle some of that slope. And then we have a pretty simple way of color coding piles, putting a map, having shipments aligned to the map so the installers can lay out the map and see exactly where, what piles go where. We also have a field service team that many times is out on site for a few days as needed, especially at the start of projects when we need to, maybe walk through training or look at what we call the golden row. I think everybody kind of uses that word, but getting your first couple tracker lines built, your rows built, making sure there's repeatability, answering questions. And so we have a team that's able to get out to the field, and that's part of our offering. We don't tack that on as a additional cost.
Very good, very good. So I'd love to talk a little more about these two markets, the DG market, which we would typically call the 10 megawatt and down. Depends on who you are. Some developers would say 50 megawatts and down is the DG market. And then there's the utility market, the 100 plus megawatt market. But do you see any significant changes in either of those markets in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think that the DG, it's going to be the DG market for us is very state dependent. What we've seen, some really good policy and some growth. Obviously, Illinois is pretty big. You're seeing a lot of stuff that's happening in the Northeast, New York. I was at the Rev 24 conference a few weeks ago in Vermont, and although they're a very small state, they're really doing an amazing job at trying to get to some very aggressive energy goals. And the DG, and whether you put community solar in there, for different pockets, is a big part of that. So, I think as we look at a new administration, I think that state policy, you're still going to have an opportunity to have the states hopefully control a lot of their destiny there. So I think the DG market will probably slightly grow over the next year or two. But, I think that with the continued improvements in battery storage, you're going to continue to see those two. If you're doing a project with solar and you don't have storage, I think it's more and more going to be the exception. On the utility scale side, there's a very good cost proposition when we look at where solar falls in versus other forms of energy. Texas now is the largest state for solar, and there's still a lot of land, especially in areas like West Texas and other parts of the country where you're going to see a lot of utility scale solar. Again, I think this next year, Wood Mackenzie's and the others, I think there's a kind of a flat trend, maybe with slightly growth next year. But I do think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to continue to see a steady growth, even with the fact that we'll be deploying probably a lot of other types of energies, whether it's drilling, whether it's fracking. And I think one of the challenges that we all face, and what I think you'll see from an innovation standpoint, and you are seeing it, by the way, in addition to just every year you have panels with higher efficiency and all the stuff we're doing technology-wise, is how do we use automation? How do we look at, there's a lot of companies that are looking at automated install. There's a labor shortage in a lot of ways in our country and across many industries. And so, one thing I'm going to plug Dean Solon from Create is we told Joe Farney and I were on a panel last week at the Tennessee show, and Joe told this story. And, how do you look at things like pre-attaching a torque tube to a module, bringing it as one set? There's going to be a lot of things to try to take labor out, because there may not be as much labor available, especially if more people are out doing other things in oil fields and others. But how do you design a plant? How do you design and install with with needing less people. Obviously, there's a safety aspect. And how do you design it for the young person in this country that probably is more interested in an Xbox or writing code or doing things that are maybe not so much hands-on. And I think the analogy that Dean made is like, I've got to design this so, the kid that's in his basement playing Xbox can be able to do this and be able to contribute to the workforce in a way that just really takes a lot of the same principles that I know in Dean's case that he's thinking from automotive years ago before he got into solar. And again, I've spent a little bit of time in that space. How do you take out waste? How do you drive lean manufacturing principles? And so I think you're going to see a continued focus on that, how projects are built, whether it's automation, whether it's robots, whether it's more pre-assembled. There's a lot of emphasis on that, I think, across all of our contemporaries as well.
So let's talk about this partnership with Create, as you call it, Energy. Their website is recreate.solar. Very interesting company and very famous founder in Dean Solon. So tell us about your work with them.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. I know, Dean's one of the pioneers and trailblazers in our industry, from founding Shoals back in the 90s, and I think everybody knows the story of the success they had and bringing that company to public. And over the last 2 years, Dean now is embarking on what his next adventure is, and with Create Energy, he's been able to Create is kind of the parent, where the ultimate goal is to be able to drive as much domestic manufacturing as possible. And the goal is also to be able to bring as much of a power plant, possibly a whole power plant, together to a developer, to a customer under one purchase order. And so in parallel, the Create Group has done a few things. They've, over the last year, they've made some acquisitions. They've acquired a transformer company, a switchgear company, an EPC. They announced at Intersolar in Munich the partnership with a module supplier in Europe, Recom. Recom and Create have a partnership joint venture to make product in the U.S. under the brand Recreate, and that's where kind of Recreate comes from. So that's going to be happening in the U.S. There's a longer-term plan to be able to make cells. Dean has purchased I think about a 300,000 square foot, maybe a little bit off on the size, manufacturing facility in his home of Portland, Tennessee, and that is continuing to scale. And where we had the opportunity, and my relationship with Dean goes back to our first solar days. A lot of things in common. There's a lot of common threads from what we do from a U.S. manufacturing standpoint, and what Dean's always been passionate about. And so we're really honored and excited to be able to be a source to provide our tracker, our fixed tilt, as part of the offering, if you will, for future projects. And so we have already taken a lot of steps around how we're going to continue to scale. There's still a lot of work to be done, but it's a very exciting time, and we're just really happy to be a part of it.
So the Recreate is, their first foray is to release a solar panel in the U.S. market, a U.S. made solar panel, right?
Yes.
And then you guys are co-branding, co-promoting. Is that the gist of the partnership? Yeah.
So it's a little bit, probably a little bit different. It's a white glove approach. We're going to provide our product directly, but it's still, whether you want to say powered by OMCO, it's still known as our tracker. We have optimized a module mount design to this module. We've done a ton of testing. So we've optimized, our mounting on our tracker and some of the features. And so there's some other stuff that we're looking at from a innovation roadmap that are very early to be able to talk about. But initially, our offering is going to have some design optimization around their panel. But yeah, it's basically a white glove, but it's a white glove where we're talking openly about our product. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah.
In our last few minutes together, we are putting together a webinar with OMCO and a company called Sunstall. They're a mechanical installer. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a teaser about what they might expect with our discussion with Sunstall? Helge Biernath is the CEO there.
Yes, absolutely, Tim. I appreciate the opportunity to talk through that. We're kind of finalizing kind of what we want to present as far as partnership that we've had with Helge and the Sunstall team. When we started years ago, around 2018, with our own products, they were one of the first installers that we started working with, and so we've had a great growth and relationship over many years. And so where the focus of our webinar is targeting at is, and this is based off our experience in the past and now, is how do we handle changes in projects? How do we handle short-term things that happen, whether it's everything from supply chain issues to ground conditions to you can do a geotech and POW test a site, and still you have areas that it's not a perfect science, right? And so we've got some examples of how our teams have worked together to bring some solutions to customers, and to be able to kind of stop on a dime, if you will, and make changes. We've had projects where the customers made a module change during the middle of the install, and how do we handle that with minimal impact and minimal change order. So we've got some good examples, and I think it'll be a really good opportunity for us to show how you leverage partnerships, how you work together to bring value for customers. I think our industry is doing some great things in that space. I read about it every day, and Tim, you and I see each other a few times a year at conferences, and there's a lot of collaboration, and sometimes across competitor lines, and if it makes sense in those cases, I think this industry has done well at that. I mean, as much growth as we have to get, it's a unique competitive situation because we all have to do some amazing things. But we're looking forward to presenting that with the Sunstall team, and hopefully being able to address some really good real life problems, if you will.
Excellent. Well, check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Please give us a rating and a review. You can check out all of our events at the events tab, and reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from my listeners. With that, Eric, how can our listeners find you?
Yes, definitely. Our website is OMCOsolar.com, and we also have obviously a LinkedIn page, and we're pretty active there. But that's our main website, and we're also usually our team is been very active in a lot of the trade shows that we're having. We obviously had a big presence at RE Plus. We'll do so again next year. But and then I think the website's probably the best way. But we're easy to find and quick to respond.
Perfect. I want to thank Eric Goodwin, Vice President of Business Development with OMCO Solar, for coming on the show today. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar. Thanks, Eric.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it.
The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by CPS America, maker of North America's #1 three-phase string inverter, with over 8 gigawatts shipped in the U.S. The CPS product lineup includes string inverters ranging from 25 kW to 350 kW. Their flagship inverter, the CPS 350 kW, is designed to work with solar plants ranging from 2 megawatts to 2 gigawatts. CPS is the world's most bankable inverter brand and is America's #1 choice for solar plants, now offering solutions for commercial, utility, ESS, and balance of system requirements. Go to chintpowersystems.com or call 855-584-7168 to find out more.